So, The Legend of Zelda is an amazing game series. Spans across what is it? Almost 40 years at this point. Um, and the lands that we get to traverse through and experience are some of the best in gaming. When it first started, it was pretty limited, but then we have an amazing Hyrule to explore and Link to the Past. Not just one world, but then we get the Dark World, which is just like a darkened parallel version of Hyrule. And then we go to 3D and we get Ocarina of Time. And then after Ocarina of Time, we get Majora's Mask, which is what we're going to be talking about. And Zelda games, despite the fact that most times were taking place in Hyrule or some form of Hyrule, uh, Zelda 1, Hyrule, Zelda 2, A New Hyrule, um, Link to the Past, Hyrule, in uh, Link's Awakening, we take place in Koholint Island, which ties into this, what I'm going to talk about. Um, I'll get to that. Uh, Pretty much everything takes place in Hyrule apart from Majora's Mask, um, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, which take place in Holodrum and Labruna, which really fun to go through. Same if it, Ages was a bit bigger because you have the main map that that you're in, but then you can go 100 years into the past, which totally like revamps the map for the most part. So world sense, Ages was the bigger world, uh, but Seasons did have kind of like an underworld with some Brosians and all that, but it wasn't a huge area. I mean, it was pretty big, but not like whole land worth. But for the most part, it's been in Hyrule, just different incarnations. Even like Wind Waker, it's still Hyrule. You're above Hyrule, but it's still Hyrule. Uh, Spirit Tracks takes place in New Hyrule. Um, but you also have like Skyloft. You're in the air, you're on these islands, really fun, but then you travel down to the land, which becomes Hyrule. So again, Hyrule. So we don't have many games that take place in somewhere that isn't Hyrule. And Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening with Koholint Island. So you have two games, Link's Awakening, which takes place on Koholint Island, Majora's Mask, that takes place in Termina. There's a problem with both of these games. Both of them are just pretty much dreams or creations thought up. So I found out recently, like today, I was watching Dr. Wily and he was talking about the Mask Salesman. And for the longest time, we thought that Termina was like parallel universe. That's why everyone looked the same, or somewhere else in Hyrule that Link fell into. But apparently, that's not the case. Apparently, the Zelda Encyclopedia that came out describes it as this. So, transformation of a world into the land of Termina. The combination of the burdens in the heart of the Skull Kid and the evil magic inside Majora's Mask transformed a world into the land of Termina. The world created had a distinct culture influenced by Majora's ancient tribe. It was inhabited by races and people constructed from Skull Kid's memories and imagination. The four giants central to Termina's legend were originally friends of Skull Kid who, like Termina itself, were created by the mask. And here's the part that I'm annoyed. Termina's existence was tied to that of Majora's Mask. When the evil in the mask was defeated by Link, Termina disappeared soon after he left. So we have a world that is in Hyrule, which we don't get to see a whole lot. Just like Koholint Island, we had Termina in Majora's Mask. And both of them, nope, it's just a dream. Just created out of the thoughts of, whatever they needed at the time. So Koholint Island, Link is traveling by boat. He gets washed up on this island. This turns out that the only way for him to really get off this island is to wake up the Windfish, who is sleeping. But waking up the windfish means the island disappears. Everyone on it, poof, gone. Because everything on that island, including the island itself, is a dream created by the windfish. So Link wakes up the windfish and the island disappears. Now we have Termina. Same thing. You're going to this land, you're saving it, you're getting to know the people, and what happens? At the end, just disappears. I hate when games do this. Again, very rarely do we get to step out of Hyrule and go somewhere else, but we have two instances where it's not even real. It's just the imagination of something. And considering we don't have many games that take place outside of Hyrule, because again, we've got Holodrum and Labrena, but as far as we know, Holodrum and Labrena are in the world itself, like they're nations or lands that would around Hyrule, and the Triforce kind of just transports Link to those lands that need help. So unless they're going to say that those two are just lands made up by the Triforce to freaking see if Link is worthy. But we had Twin Rover there who was trying to revive Ganon, and if you link both games, they do end up reviving Ganon, but it's not the true Ganon. He comes out as this mindless beast, because they end up, instead of having to be able to sacrifice Zelda, they end up sacrificing themselves. So instead of the intelligent tactician we know as Ganon, he comes out as this crazy, mindless, savage beast. But it's the very same Twin Rova, and we like to know how they came back. But same Ganon, so we would like to know how exactly, we don't, I don't want those two worlds, or two lands rather, to be just dreams as well, because that means all 4 unique lands, all just dreams. All just dreams. That means in the world of Zelda that there is no other place apart from Hyrule. It's all just figments of everyone's imagination. And I don't like when companies do that. It was a dream the whole time. Because people have wanted to go back to Termina. Termina is by far one of the most unique lands we have ever had the privilege of traveling through. All the characters are interesting. We got to see them go about their daily lives. Instead of the goddesses, we had the 4 giants. We had a lot more world building and development. I mean, Hyrule, despite how big the game seemed, when you look at the areas, they're rather small. It's also funny, Ganondorf, the great king of evil. So as child Link, you're going through Hyrule Field, and at night the Style Children come out. You have enemies. You have the Peahats that are sleeping at night, and then they're active during the day if you go near them. But then when you're an adult, nothing's there. Like, it's almost like Ganondorf, this great king of evil, you thought that he would want monsters roaming around, but he's just sitting there like, well, they might try to go to Lake Hylia, and they might be inconvenienced by all those pesky enemies. And he's actually cleaning up the world. It's like, maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. Maybe we just misunderstood him. Maybe the world was better under Ganondorf. I don't know. He seemed to clean up Hyrule Field well enough to where people could safely traverse it. But yeah, Termina. And then it's like, when you think of Termina, that you like go to Icona Canyon and you hear like this about this war that happened between the people there and like the Garo and this and that. And then you realize now there's nothing there. It never existed. This world that apparently has such a rich history doesn't actually exist. And I just hate when games do that. It feels like such a cop-out. Because again, we wanted to go back to Termina. And now that's not going to be possible because Termina doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. You know, there's some things that can possibly be done with certain games. Like people want to see Midna again. We know that at the end of Twilight Princess, the mirror of Twilight was shattered, meaning Midna possibly can never come into Hyrule again. But there is always some artifact or something. You know, they're gonna find some way of bringing Midna back. You know, maybe Zelda and Link make another, you know, Mirror of Twilight, or have the goddesses make a new one or something. But the Skull Kid and Majora's Mask created Termina. Without Majora's Mask, the evil from the mask now is gone. So without it, there is no Termina. So this amazing land that we got to go through no longer exists. So if you're someone who's waited to see like a updated 3D rendering of Majora's Mask on a current day console and have a new adventure there because Link's been called back to quell some kind of shenanigans going on, that's not going to happen because Termina no longer exists because it was all in the mind of the Skull Kid and the Majora's Mask. And once Majora's Mask was defeated, Link left, and poof, Termina goes bye-bye. But I just hate when game companies do that. It's like, I think for a while, like with Five Nights at Freddy's, people are trying to understand how all the games connect, and then they're like, oh, maybe it's just a dream. That maybe all the, it's all in the mind of the child, and the games aren't actually happening, and they didn't actually happen. They were all just dreamt up by the kid. And everyone's like, no, no, no. Because we hate when things like that happen. I think Mario 2, same thing. We see Mario sleeping. It was all dreamt up. I can't stand when games do that. Because then it feels like there's no... And they wait till the end to tell you this because they want you to be attached to these characters. They want you to feel like something's at stake. But then at the end, when they're like, oh, it was just a dream the whole time, it's like, then none of it mattered. Here we have the hero risking a real person, risking life and limb for people that don't even exist. Link on Koholint Island risks his life and limb to go through these dungeons. And what happens? It's to help people, or what they think is helping, people who don't even exist. That they're all just created in the mind of the Windfish. Link goes to Termina. Terrible things. Moon about to crash down and kill every single person in Termina. Again, risking life and limb to go to each of the temples, defeat the bosses, awaken the giants. And for what? Nothing, because it didn't actually exist. There's no sense of urgency anymore. There's no sense of, oh man, we need to do it. No, it doesn't exist. For the longest time, we thought it was an actual place. But now we're told, nope. Nope. And then you're like, well, then what was it all for then? What was all... We could have just let the moon crash down. Just have us find a way home and let the moon crash down, because once we left, it wouldn't have mattered. Defeat Majora's Mask, and you see where people get pissed off when we find out it's all just a dream? Because then it just becomes meaningless. You go on this grand adventure to save everyone's life, but then you find out that none of them are actually real. I cannot stand that. Nomenclature? Oh yeah. From Terminal, which people place where go and come and go. Yeah, they said come. I'm gonna come. Oh. Yeah, we have such an amazing land that they've built. And then all disappears. Southern Swamp, Clocktown, Snowhead, Great Bay, Iconic Canyon, Romani Ranch, Terminus Field, Southern portion. I mean, it's like, yeah, I saw the Indiegogos. So there's this whole quest in Great Bay where we're tasked with finding Lulu's eggs. You know, she's standing there and she's depressed because the pirates, you know, the Gerudo pirates took her eggs. But none of it was real then. We went for nothing. They were fake eggs. They didn't exist. I understand that at the time Link doesn't know that they're all real for him. But for us as a player learning this, it's like, what do we do it for? You know, if they said that it was just a parallel universe and that Majora's Mask was kind of like the connection between the two, that would have been fine. If they said after beating Majora's Mask, it was impossible for Link to get back there because Majora's Mask was a link between them, a link between worlds, if you will. That would have been fine. But to use that cop out of, oh, it's just the imagination. Again, one of the few places in Zelda that takes place outside of Hyrule, and it's not even real. You know, and soon they're going to be saying about like Breath of the Wild, because with the timeline, there's three timelines. There's the adult timeline, the child timeline, and the Hero Falls timeline. And people don't know where in the timeline Breath of the Wild takes place because it's got a mixture of everything in it. It's got the Arbiter's Grounds from the child timeline, because child timeline leads to, you know, the arrest and execution of Ganondorf, but after that fails, they send him to the Twilight Realm. So, you know, we find the Mirror Twilight in the Arbiter's Grounds. The Arbiter's Grounds is in Breath of the Wild. But then we also have the Koroks, who are evolved Kokiri after the land of Hyrule was flooded. That's in the adult timeline. So, and then it's gonna be like, oh, because it's a mixture, it's all a dream. It's all a dream. Breath of the Wild's world doesn't actually exist. It's all happening in Link's head in the 100 years that he was asleep. You know, some crap like that. But I just, I mean, this is one of those times where I think they made the wrong decision, because I just made a video yesterday saying that, oh yeah, well, if Nintendo says it, it must be, you know, it has to be true. You know, we should just go with it until they say otherwise. But this is one of those decisions that I I just don't like. I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't believe them because it's written in the encyclopedia. But it's just, I don't want to believe it because it's such a stupid thing. We don't have many areas in Zelda games that take place outside of Hyrule. And then 2 of the 4 don't even exist. They're just figments of people's imaginations. Now, like I said, I hope we don't find out that Labrena and Holodrum were mind creations, because I would love to go back to Labrena and Holodrum. 3D version or 3D remakes, when? People have been waiting for them forever. You know, it's like we had Ocarina of Time, you know, Majora's Mask, everything's getting HD remakes and this and that. When are those going to get HD remakes? You know, A Link to the Past, getting a 3D remake, or not Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. You know, I would love to see Holodrum and Labrena, but in that Link's Awakening, up, you know, HD, you know, kind of thing where it looks like it's a little toy, but it's actually like, you know, but something. But if you've ever dreamt of going back to Termina, it's not going to happen because it doesn't exist anymore. Although there is a way they could somehow use the Triforce to make Termina a real place. Link, though, would have to be the one wishing on the Triforce, because he would have to remember Termina. Like, maybe this game takes place not too long after Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, when he gets back to Hyrule. So he would have to wish on the Triforce, because he's the only one who knows about Termina. So it's all in his mind. So he'd have to be the one to wish upon the Triforce in order to create Termina as an actual separate land. And that's really the only way that he could go back there, or we could go back there. So, because the evil of the mask was defeated, Termina no longer exists. So the Triforce is really the only way of going back there. So Nintendo, if you want to use the Triforce somehow to get Termina back into the lore, so that way we can go there again, that would be great, because some fans are just tired of adventuring in Hyrule. You know, and then you create these amazing places, and oh, it's just a dream. So, anyway, it's just so stupid. It really is. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.